So pathogens are out there, they're trying to kill you at all times, so how do I just not fall dead at any given moment? Well, you're lucky because your body has you covered, literally. Your immune system, it's broken up into 3 lines of defense. Your first line are a series of physical and chemical barriers that prevent pathogens from actually getting in to your body where they can cause some damage. Your skin is probably one of the most important mechanisms that you have to defend yourself against infection. It keeps you alive as long as it's intact. So really important when you're answering exam questions and you want to talk about skin being a barrier against disease, you need to be specific and say intact skin, not just skin. Your skin is part of what we call your innate immune system. It's what you're born with, and it kind of recognizes all pathogens the same. It kind of just like acts the same no matter what the infection is. It doesn't discriminate. So your innate immune system kind of just works to block things pretty quickly, but it's not specific at all. So picture your first line of defense. If you're looking at a battle, this is a giant wall that's surrounding your city. Things can't get through that wall. You might even have some things like vats of acid being thrown off the wall. Those are chemical barriers. We'll get into that later. Now, your skin is made up of many different layers. The outer bit that you can actually see is dead. So it's made up of a lot of this protein called keratin, which you see in your hair and in your nails. And this gives this outer layer of your skin a lot of structure, a lot of support, and it means that things can't really get in really well. So this upper layer of skin is known as your epidermis. Epi just means like top layer. So the epidermis covers your dermis, which is a thin layer underneath the outer layer of skin that you have. This is where you have your blood vessels, you've got a couple of nerve endings there, and you've got a lot of like space for things to sort of move around in tissue fluid. Underneath your dermis, you've got your hypodermis, which is below the dermis. And this is where you're going to have a lot more blood vessels, a lot more connective tissue, lots of things going on under there. So in order for a pathogen to get into your cells and into your body, it needs to get through that epidermis layer and breach the dermis. Because once it gets into the dermis, it's got a higher chance of getting into your bloodstream and then moving around everywhere in your body. Side fact, your dermis has a lot of nerve endings there, and these nerve endings are sensory receptors. So if you ever notice when you get a paper cut, it doesn't bleed that much, but it hurts like what you're essentially doing is you're cutting that epidermis layer, you've gotten into the dermis, and the dermis is reacting to things like wind and air and water and movement, and it's basically sending a signal to your brain of like, this really, really hurt. In addition to your intact skin, we also have commensal bacteria, which we looked at in our previous video on pathogens. So commensal bacteria are also known as natural flora. They're going to be hanging out on your cell surface and acting as competition for any invaders that are trying to sort of get a hold. Our natural flora will vary from person to person, so what you have on your skin is going to be different from what someone else has on their skin. Quick tangent time, kind of also like a pet peeve for a lot of biologists. When you hear things like, oh, this kills 99.9% of germs, or there are germs everywhere, my hands are covered in germs. In biology, germ refers to a sex cell. So you're looking at sperm and ova cells. So if your hands are covered in germs, what are you doing? That's pretty gross. Okay. So your skin keeps things out, but it's not alone in keeping things out of your body as part of your first line of defense. Your first line of defense also includes a lot of chemical barriers, such as mucus, saliva, urine, acid, and oil. When we're looking at things like mucus, they line the cavities that you have inside of your body, technically inside, but they're still exposed to the outer environment. So you have it lining your digestive system, your nose, your airways, your mouth, everything there. Mucus is really important. It maintains a thin layer that's quite sticky. So if a pathogen encounters mucus, it will actually get stuck there. and you're just waiting until you're able to cough it out, sneeze it out, or you're waiting for your white blood cells to get to the area and sort of take care of the infection. Different fluids in your body are fantastic chemical barriers as well. Obviously your stomach's got a lot of stomach acid. If anything that survives that, well, to be fair, they kind of deserve to infect you at that stage. You've also got oil on your skin, which makes it a nice anaerobic environment. So a lot of pathogens are aerobes, they like oxygen. If they can survive an anaerobic environment, then they're able to sort of get further. Your sweat, your tears contain acids, and they contain enzymes which help to break down a lot of pathogens as well. So crying is good for you, it's flushing out your tear ducts, and it's helping you to get through the crippling emotional insecurity that you live every single day. Tear ducts are really responsible for flushing out these openings in your eyes, so we're producing a lot of enzymes that are helping with that process, but also the physical movement of that liquid out of your eyes helps to flush out dirt and bacteria. Some people do get blockages of the tear ducts, and it's really, really gross. We've got this relatively common condition around called dacrylithiasis, and that's when the tear duct gets blocked and we start to calcify around the blockage. So calcification is you're forming a stone. We need to remove this if that does happen. There are gross videos out there, and you bet we're gonna watch one. Okay, so you notice this kid is applying some pressure to the eye, and out comes the stones. Oh, that's huge. Oh, it's disgusting. These obstructions are going to cause a lot of painful inflammation, so it is important that we do remove this stuff. Now, wax is an interesting one. You have wax in your ears, and it acts as both a chemical and physical barrier. It forms a thick plug that stops pathogens from kind of getting further in. Now, wax does vary from person to person. Some people have drier wax, some people have wet wax, which is gross, but it happens. But it works the same way. Pathogens going to get in, encounter the wax, they can't get any further. So sometimes wax can become impacted. So it actually builds up in an area, and it can cause some problems with hearing. In that case, you can get this removed. We are definitely going to watch this. Look away if you're squeamish. Ugh, it's disgusting, but I can't look away. So your first line of defense is really just making sure that things can't get into your body. Anything that does get in encounters the second line of defense, which is the next video. So we've talked a lot about human defenses against different pathogens, but that being said, the plant world also has its own defenses. They have a version of an immune system as well. So obviously they don't have the complex cells that we do working together in 3 lines of defense, but they do have physical and they do have chemical barriers. So if you consider a plant, what they have are vulnerabilities to insects eating them, small mites, and they might also have some bacteria and fungi trying to invade. Lots and lots of different things are working together as physical barriers to keep pathogens out of your plant. Physical barriers include things like your waxy cuticles outside of plant leaves and around the surface of a plant. You might have hairs, you might have thorns. Plants also will have chemical barriers to prevent infection as well. So if you ever see a tree that's been cut, you might notice a thick resin, so sap that's solidified on the surface of that cut. This is similar to the scabs that we form when we get a cut. Plants, when they're damaged, will also release signals to neighboring cells to prevent infection. So what might happen is that if you have an infection starting at a leaf, that signal will get sent to surrounding leaves, and that part of the tree might just drop off and fall off. So that's kind of like, imagine if you got a cut on your finger and then we send signals to different cells in your finger and your hand falls off. It's drastic, but like, It works. Plants will also secrete a lot of enzymes to help prevent different pathogens from getting in. They might have a lot of different toxins that prevent insects from eating them as well. They've also got these things called phytoalexins, which are an antibiotic. So if they ever have a bacterial infections, these phytoalexins will enter the bacterial cells and kill them. We can actually start to extract these and use them as human antibiotics. So plants, not so defenseless as you might have thought, but overall the main things we need to get from this is that there are lots of physical and chemical barriers out there acting as part of your first line of defense in your immune system.